Okay, so this is where we left it off yesterday, right? So did everyone get screen like sort of like this, and it sort of worked, right? You can verify. Everyone verified that it actually worked, right? By the way, if you have the little X here as opposed to 3G, if it says X, that means you do not have network connection, right, on the emulator. It's equivalent of your phone not being connected to the network. So this is not gonna work out at all, right? Make sense? So it can easily fail. How would we deal with if something failed or it didn't fail? What if we just add a little feature where we tell the user what happened? Let's do that first. So because right now the user doesn't know if it worked out or it didn't. Okay. So one sort of Android way of doing that is to pop up a little box here. It's kind of like a little, cloud, like just comes up, says something and disappears. Yeah, it's called toast. Okay, so let's start by doing that. So back in our code, it's called toast. Yeah, back in our code. So this can work out, or it may, so this may or may not work out, right? Right. So what I would do if something may or may not work out, what I usually would do is I would surround that something with try catch, right? Is everyone familiar with a try catch? Yeah. So what you can do in Eclipse, you can do this. You can select the code, right, that you want, and you can say source surround with try catch, right? And that actually figures out even what exception to catch for you. So see, it knows that in this case, Twitter exception is what makes sense, right? So now, if it worked out, I would like to tell the user that it worked out, or if it didn't work out, I would like to tell the user it didn't work out, right? So what I can do is I can do something like this: toast dot make text. Okay, and now it's asking us for three things: context, text, and duration. We haven't discussed what context is, but context basically represents the current application context. Each application has its own context. Roughly, a context is your app. Okay, so because each app is going to have its own sort of set of data and visibility and a way to share stuff, all that makes context, right? So typically, if you're inside of an activity or a service, which is what we are mostly working on anyhow, context is going to be simply this. That's because both activity and a service are subclasses of context. So you can just pass this as the context, and it knows that it's this activity or this service. With other main building blocks, such as broadcast receiver and content providers, they are not is a relationship to a context, but context is readily available. So we'll worry about that when we get to it. Okay. But for now, just so you know that this refers to the class itself, which is inevitably inherited from context. Okay. And now text. Text, I could do one of the two things. I could say message posted successfully, right? That would be one thing. Or I can refer to a resource, which would be the more proper way, right? Because if I do it like this, I just hard-coded this forever and ever, and even people in Japan are going to get the English messages, and they're not going to understand it. So what would be the better way to do it? Yeah, so it'd be better to actually open up resources, open up your layout, sorry, not layout, values, and then strings. And then you can quickly add a new string. So I can create a string name equals, and I'll say MSG status updated successfully, something like that. And then since we're gonna have the one for not successful, I'll say I'll create that one as well. So I just created two new pieces of text, right? And this may look like extra work and all that, but you guys understand why we're doing it, just to kind of do things properly.
For the second, I guess, string, would it actually make sense to do it this way, or actually dump the actual error code from catch onto that? Or that's going to be too cryptic and they're not going to understand what it is?
They probably, we're gonna, it's up to you, right? We could print out that, but it's probably gonna be cryptic to the user. So print out the actual exception.
Exception.
Yeah. So I mean, the user would not understand the actual exception. Yeah, we would need to translate it for them into a plain English to do it to be nice. So everyone got some kind of piece of text. It doesn't really matter. You can use your own names, right? It doesn't have to be. It's just two pieces of text. So then, if it was successful, as opposed to hard coding it here, then I'm gonna, as opposed to doing this, I'm gonna point to it by saying r.string dot, and there's my MSG updated successfully. Keep in mind that this is only gonna be available in R. So this is only going to be available in R if you have saved this file. So you got to save this file first, because that causes R to get updated. So far so good? Okay. And finally, it's asking for a duration. So duration is an integer. What do you think it means? Yeah, how long to do it, and you said seconds, milliseconds. Well, I would expect it to be milliseconds, because a lot of Java stuff would be milliseconds, but it's not. Okay, so that's why I kind of wanted to point out, because it's not what you would expect it to be. In Java, typically when you have something like this, you would assume it's in milliseconds, and you would put something like, I don't know, 10,000 to mean 10 seconds, right?
Because even when you mouse over, the whole Java doc doesn't actually explain what.
Exactly. Yeah, and it doesn't. Yeah, even if you mouse over it, the documentation doesn't instantly tell you. It's not very detailed. So. In the past, I used to think it's milliseconds. I'm like, why is it not showing? But it's actually a constant, and it can have one of the two values, length long or length short. Okay? So I'm going to put length long.
There's no way to get your own time in there?
No.
Okay, so it's two options.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why it's actually good that way, is because you can't have because you could have something, a service, a background process actually throw a toast and actually show something at the user over the user application. So as such, you don't want the third-party services to like suddenly take advantage of that and start throwing stuff on the user screen, right? So a way around that is to basically make toast only allow either very short or short length, which they call long, but long is not very long.
Right.
So
I notice if you have a lot of text, it's not enough time for a person to read it.
yeah, and that's why it's supposed to be a small little message that just pops up and goes away. Yeah. Okay, so I close my semicolon, and it looks good, right? Like you would think that we're done. Except you would run this and nothing would work, and it's a little confusing. It's hard to figure out why is it not working. Everything looks good, everything compiles, etc. But you still need to say .show for it to actually show. I don't know why API is designed that way, but that's how it is.
Maybe you can queue up messages or something. Is it a feature? Is there a
It
feature
maybe it's like that. Yeah, maybe you can make it up and then show it later on. Yeah, you're right. And I'm gonna Control Shift F to reformat it so that everything fits on one screen like that, so you guys can actually see it, right? So you, oh, so it needs to be toast dot. Okay, I'll take a look at it. But if you guys did this one, go ahead and do the same one for when things went wrong, right? So the catch part. So fill in the other one. Oh, yeah, you know, because there's a back, right? So this is the perfect.
Oh.
Dot show is on the wall.
Oh, okay.
So it tells me. So don't ever type it, like use this as a self-completion. Because it's not seeing it. Okay, so let's see. So
Yes.
R is not getting generated properly as well. Let me actually delete it altogether. So R is not. Question is why is R not being generated? So everyone got that, and then I'll reformat it so it fits in the same page. So when we run it, now, if I say testing toast or something, it should actually report that. Click on update, and then it says status update successfully. So that's the toast, and then it disappears. And then if I click on update again, it should say fail. Status update failed because I'm trying to send the same message twice, right? So everyone got that? Any questions?
It's a problem restarting Eclipse.
Reset. Okay. Let me know when if it persists when you restart it. Anybody else?
Is there a way to show a box or something until somebody clicks on it will not go away? Like say if there is an error, the user has to really click on it after viewing it so that it goes away.
So basically you're asking for a dialog, like pop up and wait for you. Yeah. So there's a dialog. That's a different kind of widget, but yes, there is a way to do that. Yeah.
With the text boxes, like is always you want to give like a text box a prefix and then a dialog box to enter. Is that possible, or is the prompt or the hint always disappear when you start typing? I'm wondering. I don't know in all phones how it is. You know what I'm saying? Like if I have like say I have a questionnaire, right? Typically it has the name and then it has a little text box. But I know it doesn't make sense to waste space on that. Header which usually goes into the text box, and as you start typing it disappears, right?
Right, so this is the hint. So the moment I start typing hello, hint disappears. If I wanted to put some pre-typed in text like HTTP,
That would just be like a header.
well, I could. I mean, I could have had text here and then right.
Oh.
I mean, that's easy enough because all you have to do is in the layout as opposed to using the. That's how we had it initially. Let me just. I'll do quick and dirty version, but as opposed to having the header, the status, sorry, hint, I could have changed that or overpowered it by, say it's http:// right? So there it is. So now if you run it, right? Again, I should have put it in a separate strings, etc. But this is just a quick and dirty version. So there it is. Now I can say, google.com, for example, right? That's what you're asking for, right? Yeah, so you can put some pre-typed in text. That's not a big deal. Yeah. Okay. So once in a while, you may think that you killed an emulator, but you didn't. So I'm on a Mac, so I can do ps grep for emu, right? Emulator, and I can see if I have psax, okay, grep emulator. I can see if there's an emulator running. So it's possible that you have an emulator process as a zombie, right? So in Windows, go to your whatever tool you use in Windows, Task Manager or something. Look for processes, kill anything that has to do with emulator. Shut it down normally as well. And then, but what might have happened is emulator died without cleaning up behind itself. So if you remember, you guys, in emulator files are in cd.android.avd, right? And then we go into particular, like for example, my phone avd, and this is where the files are. So if your emulator died, yet it kept locks on files, right? Then when you start it, it's going to say, hey, that emulator is being used by somebody because the files are locked. So you could either, you could delete the lock files, or you can just delete the whole emulator. The easiest thing, just blow it away, create a new one. Because you got nothing, like it's not like you have a data in it and stuff. But if you wanted to nicely clean it up, you could go here and you could just do rm star lock, right, and just remove the locks, right? But right now you have an emulator, it's not starting because it thinks that it's already running. It's either thinking that because the process exists, or it's finding log files, which the previous one did not clean up properly. So,
Can you run the multiple emulators at the same time?
can you have multiple emulators at the same time? Certainly, you can have multiple emulators at the same time, but they have to have two different user IDs, user images. So, for example, I can create a second emulator, right? My phone 2. I'll pick, to go with Android 9. I'll call it gingerbread, actually. Gingerbread phone. There you go. I'll put some size 10. I'll pick some resolution. I'll go with the default resolution, and I'll click create. And now I have my second phone, and I can start it as well, and I can have two phones running. So you're gonna see very shortly that I have two processes. It's coming up. So there's one, and then there's my second phone, right? So yes, I can have two separate phones, certainly.
So you can open the same phone twice. What would you say? The same
Yes, you can have. Yeah, exactly. You can have two of the same. phone sharing the same user ID, image, because that's, you know, then there's a conflict. It's kind of like, can you have two phones sharing the same RAM physically? It's quite impossible. So, yeah. So it seems like a lot of you guys are having problems with the R file. So R file is generated automatically, right? But if you remember, R is generated after this is processed. So R is based on this, okay? Based on XML. So the problem with the R is that if there's any problem in here, then R cannot possibly be created, okay? Or in here. And the problem with that is that XML problems are somewhat harder to find sometimes because they're not as obvious, right? So here is a let me demonstrate that. So for example, if I'm gonna blow away my R, I'm just gonna delete it. I should be able to do that, right? Because it just gets recreated. See, it just automatically got recreated, right? That's not a big deal. However, let's do something like this. What if I have a typo here? I don't know, I forgot to close something. I have a typo here, right? Forgot my quote. Now if I delete my R, right? Now I don't have R, but that in turn breaks my Java. So it's kind of like a problem here, propagated itself here, propagated itself here, propagated itself into Java. So now I have red all over the place. And you would be trying to solve Java problem, and you'd be like, oh my god, I have R, problems left and right and zillion and one error. But it's all same source because you don't have R. And the reason why you don't have R is harder to find because it's from this XML find, right? So you gotta, in that case, the best sort of hint for you is to read what it says in the console. You know, parse exception, value for constraint, blah blah blah. You know, and these are not as friendly error messages, right? So, but you would kind of have to, luckily the files are smaller, so you would go here and you would have to eyeball that's a problem. So if I fix this, hit save, now magically all the problems disappear, right? So this was one example with the XML problem. Another example with an XML problem, I'm getting to your particular case, is you tried to run here, and you clicked run on a XML file. Oh, for me it worked, but sometimes you accidentally try to run an XML file. You're thinking I want to run the project, but your file is selected, and I've seen this happen. And what happens is the result of that, obviously you can't run an XML file, but it creates strings.xml.out. Well, that file is illegal file name for resources, a .out file, and that messes up resources, which messes up R, which messes up Java. So just go ahead and delete that file.
What's in the out file?
It's sometimes what happens is when you try to run here, when I try to run an XML file, it fails to run it because you don't run an XML file, you want to run a project. But while it's failing to run it, it creates an output file, you know, sort of to give you the output of your execution, and that file gets placed in this directory. So the bottom line is this folder resources is sort of special, and there's a certain sort of rules about it. Like you guys notice that file names cannot have capitals, and you cannot have dashes and things of that nature, right? Okay, so that was it. You just removed that file, right? Okay.
It happens to be multiple times, right?
Yeah.
If I accidentally hit that run.
Yeah, quite easy to happen. So that's why I wanted to point it out. Cool. So there are my two emulators I have booted. Oh, by the way, this is what it looks like in 9. I've never seen 9 yet. Let's see. The status, the bar is different, right? The top bar, it's black. So anyway.
But this is the bare bone minimum, basically, right? I mean, it's not enhanced or anything like that.
Yeah, this is the bare bone Android open source project version 9. Yes. Yeah. Cool. So with that, let's do something a little more fun. So yesterday you guys did a lot of stuff around UI. We talked about some stuff. but this still looks a little bit ugly, and I want to make it look prettier and at the same time explain a couple of new things. So, a couple of new things that we're gonna add to the mix. First of all, let's talk about colors and background. So, for example, I would like to spice this up. I would like to make it look nicer. Okay. So to do that, what I would like to do is I would like to, for example, put a background image for this guy. So it's not black, but that I'm using some kind of background. Okay. And you could do. Let me see. I could, for example, go to Google and say Twitter, and I'm gonna do Google Images like this, and I can find some kind of graphic that I like. Okay, I would want a PNG file, PNG, because they're just better supported. So let's see what we can find. Is this a PNG file? Okay, so this is a little file. It's got some birds, yeah? So what I can do is I can now save this image into my project, but which directory would I put it in? Yes, it would go into resources Drawables, both of you were right. But so it's in resources, but it would go into Drawable. Now, here's the thing. I have 3 Drawable directories, not 1. I have 3, so which one? So they correspond to different things. Low, medium, and high density, yes? But what if, I mean, I for now, What's that?
I don't even know what then picture.
Which picture?
The picture.
Don't worry about it. You're gonna have time to find some picture. It doesn't really matter. But so for now, I'm just gonna show you how to do it. So the thing that I want to point out is that we have 3 specific directories: Drawable, high, medium, and low density per inch, right? So I could go ahead and find 3 different images that are high, medium, and low density. I just don't have time to do that. So what I would like to do is I would like to just have like 1 set of images for now. So what I can do is I can create a default Drawable directory, which is basically going to be a Drawable without any dashes, right? Just like, remember yesterday we did that for layout dash land and values dash Spanish Mexican, right? So if you do not have anything that is qualified, then it's a default, right? So I'm going to create a new folder and I'll call it Drawable, right? So that it's going to be, it's going to be the same level, right? So now these are specific for high, low, and high, low, and medium, right? But then this one is generic, right? Make sense? Now also, let me do this and let me show you the problem. So I did that. I dropped some image. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna click on refresh because Eclipse doesn't know that I did that. However, I broke things now, right? It's one of those hard to find errors. I just have a single X here. What do you think went wrong? Yeah, the file name is invalid, and it says here, resource Drawable how to get more followers on Twitter.png. File name must contain only AZ09 and underscore and dot. It doesn't like the dashes. Any idea why? Exactly, because think about it. Whatever goes in RES file is eventually going to be something here, right? So imagine that there's going to be a Drawable that has a name, something like this. Well, I can't edit. I shouldn't edit it, but it's going to have a dashes in the name, which in Java would be a minus, right? So that's why. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this file to. I'll just rename it to something simple. Refactor rename to background.png, and there it is. And now everything's fine. It compiles.
Are you allowed to directly drop it into Eclipse?
Yes, So yeah, you could have just found some image here and then just drop it into Eclipse, and that would then you wouldn't have to refresh Eclipse.
On Mac version.
Yeah. Mhm. So now that I have that image, what I can do is I can go into my status thing, right? And I want to make that image the background of my entire thing, right? But how do I do that? How do I make the background, the image background? So which element do I want to make it background of? The layout. So how do I now click on that layout? See? Exactly. See, right now I can't click on the layout behind it because all the children are sort of on top of it, right? That's sort of why it's helpful to have this, because then you can click it here to select it. Otherwise I would have hard time selecting it because everything is on top of it, right? So far so good? So now in properties I can go in the background, click on a dot dot dot, and under drawable pick the background, and there it is. See my little, you can see my little birds there. So so go ahead, find some image you like. You know, so go ahead, find some image you like, and put it in your, create a new folder, and put it in that folder. Yes. It says what? It could be that it's not a PNG image. That could be a problem. Yeah, it could be that just the extension is wrong. So let me see if let me see this one. So let's if I wanted to drag and drop it. So for example, I have this twitter.png image. So go ahead, just Google an image you like, right? And then you can literally just where is it that I found that one? Ah, it's right here. I should be able to just drag it and like this and drop it into my Drawable. I can copy image and then go here and paste it. Cannot paste clipboard. Okay, so I guess I gotta save it first, you know. Save image as, and then I can drop it into that right? Twitter BG. Okay, and then I can refresh it here. Refresh, and there it is. And then I'm gonna change my background again. So I'm gonna select my background. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna pick the different one. So Twitter BG, and bam, there's my buddy there. Okay. So go ahead and do that. Find some kind of image and put it as your background. So notice that when the file name here is .png, but notice that when we refer to it, so when I need to go to outline to select this one, and when I refer to it, there's no .png in the background. Yes, yeah, good question. On Ubuntu, the little dot doesn't work, so you guys kind of have to type it, right? So it's going to be @drawable/ and then the name of the file. Just without the extension, right? So that's what it's gonna be. and when I run it, this is what it looks like for me right now. Hey, this is new in 9. There's a cursor. See?
Yeah. Fancy selection person.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, not another two things to do.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. So I guess this is a transparent. I picked a transparent PNG, so that's why it's black on in the background, right? But we'll fix that. So you guys remember how I said these direct everything under resources is special. Okay, there are certain rules, right? So if you have images, they go into a drawable folder. That would be the default drawable folder. If you want a specific high, medium, or low density, it must be drawable dash HDPI dash LDPI dash blah blah blah. If you want French language, it must be values dash FR. If you want Spanish in Mexico, it must be values dash ES dash RMX. So there are certain rules, a naming convention about these folders, right? That's remember we talked about alternate versions, and I said if you're not sure how to construct that special name, you can use that little tool. For example, the little at plus tool. So I can, if I want to say I want background for in night mode, right? When it's a night, so that's gonna create certain. I guess it doesn't. Or orientation is landscape. That's gonna create a certain folder. I guess it doesn't create. It doesn't do that for. It's not for. I gotta select what it is. So for say values, let's say I have strings XML, right? So see how it would create a specific naming. So the names are important because they adhere to certain naming convention. Okay. So that's why drawable must be drawable, and then you can qualify it with one of the qualifiers, but must be an approved qualifier. A qualifier BG doesn't mean much. Yeah. Cool. So did everyone get this sort of? Did everyone kind of get an image sort of showing in the background like that? Yeah.
So, but if the image is bigger, it's almost like it resizes that whole box, right?
Yeah, in this case, it set up the image to kind of match this, so you can kind of see how it's resizing it, right, to kind of match.
Oh, so what I'm trying to find is the text box on the top. If I do it with regular image, it almost like grew to the size of the image. I don't want that. Right?
Which text box?
That little box where it says status update. I put an image in it. It grew to the size of the image.
Yeah, so we'll address the growing of the image, how that happens in a second. But for now, let me just kind of address something else. Right now, see, one of the problems is that, and again, keep in mind that I'm picking the cosmetic examples to show you some other stuff. You may not agree with my aesthetic choices, right? But that's more just to demonstrate certain things. So, for one, I would like this to not cover this beautiful little bird that I have in the background. I would like to see a little bit of the birdie, right? So, and plus, I would like to change the color of this box. So just like you can put a background to be a drawable, a background could also be a color. So let me demonstrate that. So I'm going to select this text area, and I'm going to get rid of that HTTP stuff. So I'm going to select the text area, and just like before, I'm going to find background, and there it is, right? And what I can do is I can put an RGB color here. Is everyone familiar with RGB? Red, green, and blue. So for example, if I do F00, so that would be very red. Doesn't look very red on the monitor, on the screen, right? So because it's F is for red, green, and blue, right? So I could do like C00, then it's darker, and so on, right? Make sense? So let's say I want to do some kind of bluish, so I would do 0 RGB, so 00 F would be a blue color, right? Something like that.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be 2 XCS more characters for each color, so it's supposed to be like
Yeah.
4, 5 zeros around.
Exactly. So so there's a short form. So if I do 00F, let me do it like this. If I do 09F, okay, that is the equivalent of 0099FF. It's just a short form. So if you do only 3 things, it just doubles it, right? Yeah. So it's the same thing. So I just because it's a web safe colors. So for me it's easier to think about it in fewer. Yeah. But there's one thing that Android adds to this, and that's the 4th color, which is the alpha channel. So you can prefix this with the alpha channel, so it that specifies how see-through or opaque something is. So for example, if I do a 7, see how now I can see a little bit of a bird. The closer I get to F, the more solid it is. The closer I get to 0, like say a 3, the more opaque it is. Right? So see, now I can see the bird, but I can also see the area on which to type. Okay? So that's what I kind of wanted to show you. So feel free to now experiment with that, right? So pick up, create some kind of color like 609F. Gives me, it's decent. It's looking, right? So I have the image, I have the background, but it's kind of see-through around it. Okay, and another thing that you can do if you want to like do some cosmetics on this, you can put a you can look at padding and padding property, right, and margins. So for example, if I wanted to pad like between the elements, I put 10. Sorry, not padding, but layout margin. I could put 10 dp or something like that, and in this case just puts it. I don't want to do it here. But for example, for this element, I could do I could pad it a little bit. 10 dp. So see how now it moved the text inside from the edge. I could put a margin on it as well, 10 dp. And now it made it like that, so it's not like all glued to the corner. Maybe 15, something like that. Okay, so try to experiment with a couple of minor things like that, and see what you get. So we learn about the colors, the alpha channel, right, and the margins of the padding. So, so you guys generally getting how this works, all this stuff, yeah? In this case, for example, I picked see how my theme here is theme.light, right? And that's why it looks like this. But if I just had the regular theme, it would actually look like that, right? Make sense? So what if I actually wanted to apply a theme? So I can apply a theme on my activity or entire application. What the theme is basically like a CSS file in HTML, so you can apply it to the entire set of applications, right? So everything looks consistent. So if I wanted to apply this theme that already exists, I would go into the manifest file and tab. So I'm applying it to the entire application. I would say something like I would point to a theme. Now, since I don't have a theme myself, I'm gonna point to a theme that is already provided by the system. So one of the built-in themes. So just like we can have our own resources, system has its own resources. The only difference is then that you say at Android column string or style in this case /theme.light, right? So basically this keyword at Android column, so adding Android to it, makes this point to a system resource as opposed to our own resource. Yeah, exactly.
How hard would it be to create your own custom themes?
Yeah, so we're gonna do that next.
Oh,
Yeah. So if I do this and now I run it, it's actually gonna apply the theme light, whatever that theme is, on my entire project. So this should turn like white on black as opposed to sorry, black on white as opposed to white on black. See? So far so good? So that's how you apply a theme. So now that you know how to apply a theme, next thing that we're gonna do is we're actually gonna create a theme. Okay? So we're gonna design it. Mhm. Yeah, so the system ships with a couple of themes, yeah, but we're gonna create our own theme, basically. So we're gonna, you know, add some stuff to it. Cool. So any questions on stuff so far? So we looked at colors, and we looked at images and how that works. So what we're gonna do next is we're gonna learn two more things. One is how to define our own themes, and the other one is how to make images stretch in a certain way with a tool called 9-patch. So those are two things that we're gonna do next. So is everyone good with all this so far? Any questions, comments, concerns?
I'm sure the syntax.
So yeah, so what I did here is I can show you this way. So if you go into the XML code and I reformat it, so basically in an application I said add Android theme and then Android style theme.light. So themes and styles are basically the same thing. You know, when you apply it to an entire application, you apply it as a theme. When you apply it to a specific activity, you would apply it as a style. So we'll see that later on. But
Sorry.
so they're basically the same thing. So you can apply them to an application or to an individual activities. In the meantime, so let's take a short break, and then we're going to continue with this.